The weight of the crown, they say, is immense. But what happens when the greatest threat to the future of the monarchy comes not from foreign powers or political rivals, but from within its own gilded walls? This is the story of a royal guard, a princess in peril, and a secret that threatened to shatter the House of Windsor. It began on an otherwise unremarkable afternoon at Buckingham Palace. Sergeant Thomas Wright, a veteran of multiple overseas deployments before joining the Royal Guard, stood at his post near the King's Door entrance. Years of military service had honed his senses, training him to notice the subtle anomalies, the details that didn't quite align, and on this day, something felt decidedly off. A black Range Rover, one of the vehicles assigned to Queen Camilla, glided through the East Gate at 4:37 p.m. Standard enough, except Camilla's official schedule, which Wright had reviewed that morning, indicated she was hosting a private tea in the Green Drawing Room until 6 p.m. No departures listed. Stranger still, the driver wasn't her regular chauffeur, but a backup named Marcus Henley. Henley had never been assigned to Camilla before. Wright radioed control to confirm Camilla's schedule. "Stand by," crackled the response. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the courtyard as Wright waited, his gut churning. 8 years as a royal guard, coupled with his military experience, had taught him to trust his instincts. This wasn't just a minor discrepancy, it was a red flag. Control confirmed, Camilla remained in the palace. So who was in her car and where were they going? 20 minutes later, the same Range Rover returned, this time entering through the south gate and parking in the service area behind the royal apartments. Vehicle logged in. Driver identified as Marcus Henley, the security channel reported. Nothing overtly suspicious, but Wright knew the routine. He knew the drivers, the vehicles, the routes. This was a deviation from protocol, a whisper of something hidden. His shift was ending. He could clock out, go home, forget about the timing. But Wright couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He walked towards the service area, ostensibly on a routine walkthrough. The Range Rover sat in its designated space, engine ticking as it cooled. The rear windows were tinted, obscuring the interior. As Wright passed the vehicle, he noticed a small handprint on the inside of the rear passenger window. Child-sized, fresh. His pulse quickened. He circled to the driver's side. The door was unlocked, not unusual within the secure palace grounds, but Wright's instincts screamed for a closer look. He opened the door. The interior smelled of leather, but also something sweet, like the strawberry candies favored by the young royals. Then his eyes landed on it, a small navy cardigan on the floor behind the driver's seat, partially hidden under the mat. He recognized it instantly. Princess Charlotte had worn it that morning, the school uniform sweater, with its distinctive embroidered crest. What was Charlotte's cardigan doing in Camilla's vehicle? Wright picked it up carefully. The fabric was still slightly warm. She'd been wearing it recently, within the last few hours. He set it back down exactly as he found it and pulled out his phone. Protocol demanded documentation before disturbing potential evidence. 3 photos from different angles. He examined the rest of the interior without touching anything. A half-empty water bottle on the back seat, the expensive kind from the palace kitchens. A small book wedged between the seats, The Secret Garden. Princess Charlotte's name was written inside the front cover in careful child's handwriting. His mind raced. Maybe Charlotte had ridden with Camilla innocently. Maybe these were simply misplaced items. But the timing didn't fit. Charlotte's afternoon schedule showed her in tutoring sessions until 5 p.m. She shouldn't have been in any vehicle at 4:30 p.m. Wright closed the car door, the pieces of the puzzle swirling in his mind. He knew he had to report, but he also knew the potential consequence. Raising concerns about senior royals without solid evidence could be a career-ending move, but he couldn't ignore the warning sign. Wright found Captain Richard Wells behind his desk, reviewing the evening shift assignments. Wells looked up, his expression neutral. "Right, your shift ended 20 minutes ago. Sir, I need to report something. I found items belonging to Princess Charlotte in the Queen Consort's vehicle. The car left palace grounds during an unscheduled departure this afternoon." Wells set down his pen. Items: her school cardigan, a water bottle, a book with her name in it. "You searched the Queen Consort's vehicle." Wells's tone sharpened. The door was unlocked. "I observed items in plain view during a routine security walk." Wright had been careful. Everything he'd done was defensible under security protocols. Wells leaned back in his chair. Princess Charlotte could have ridden with her grandmother for any number of reasons. The Queen Consort is family. Sir, Charlotte's schedule shows her in lessons during the time that vehicle left the grounds. I verified with Control before approaching the car. Perhaps her schedule changed. Then why wasn't the movement logged? The question hung in the air between them. Wells studied Wright for a long moment. You're certain about the timing? Yes, sir. Vehicle departed at 4:37. Princess Charlotte was scheduled in the music room until 5. No schedule changes noted. Wells picked up his phone. I'll check with the household staff. See if there was a change that didn't get updated in the system. He paused. Right. You've been with us how long? 8 years, sir. Good record. Multiple commendations. No disciplinary issues. Wells met his eyes. Don't create issues where there aren't any. Understand? It was a warning. A clear one. Drop this and walk away. Wright nodded. Understood, sir. As he left the office, his phone buzzed. A text from another guard, Corporal James Harding, who monitored the security camera. Right. Need to show you some. Camera room. Now. The security camera room was located in the basement level of the palace, accessed through a narrow corridor most visitors never saw. Harding sat in front of 6 monitors, footage streaming from dozens of cameras positioned throughout the ground. You asked Control about that Range Rover departure, Harding said, without looking away from the screens. I pulled the footage. Thought you'd want to see it. He tapped a keyboard. One monitor switched to recorded footage time-stamped 4:28 that afternoon. The screen showed the south courtyard from an elevated angle. The Range Rover pulled up to a side entrance. The driver, Marcus Henley, got out and opened the rear passenger door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a small figure emerged. Princess Charlotte. She wore her school uniform, but the cardigan was draped over her arm, not on her shoulders. Her head was down. She walked to the vehicle slowly, not with her usual confident stride. Camilla appeared in the frame, walking beside Charlotte. She placed one hand on the child's shoulder. It looked almost affectionate. Almost. But Wright noticed how Charlotte's posture stiffened at the touch. They spoke briefly. Camilla leaned down, saying something close to Charlotte's ear. Charlotte nodded once, then climbed into the vehicle. Camilla closed the door herself and stepped back, watching as the Range Rover drove away. Where did they go? Wright asked. Harding switched to another camera. I tracked it through the grounds. It went to the north gate, exited, drove toward Windsor. Lost visual after it left palace property. He pulled up another timestamp. Returned at 4:53. Watch what happened. The footage showed the Range Rover pulling back through the south gate. It parked in the service area. The driver got out and walked away. No one emerged from the back seat. She stayed in the car, Wright murmured. Harding fast-forwarded. At 5:04, Camilla appeared again. She opened the rear door. Charlotte climbed out. This time, she was crying. Wright's jaw tightened. Camilla crouched beside Charlotte, speaking to her. Charlotte wiped her eyes and nodded. Camilla handed her something. It looked like a tissue, and gestured toward a service entrance. Charlotte walked toward it alone. Camilla remained by the car for several seconds, then opened the rear door again and appeared to straighten the interior. That's when she must have missed the cardigan under the mat. Did you report this? Wright asked. Harding shook his head. To who? Queen Consort taking her granddaughter for a drive isn't illegal, but the fact that it wasn't logged, that Charlotte looked upset. He met Wright's eyes. Something doesn't feel right. Wright thought about the handprint on the window, about Charlotte crying, about Camilla cleaning the car interior like she was hiding something. I need to talk to Princess Charlotte. You can't just approach her directly. Protocol. I know the protocol. Wright pulled out his phone and opened the staff directory. But I also know she has a study session in the library tomorrow morning. I'm scheduled for East Wing Patrol. That's adjacent to the library corridor. Harding frowned. You're putting your career on the line for a hunch. It's not a hunch. Wright gestured at the monitor, showing Charlotte's tear-stained face. That's a child who's frightened, and someone went to significant effort to make sure that trip wasn't officially documented. He didn't sleep well that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Charlotte's small handprint on the window. He saw her stiff posture when Camilla touched her shoulder. He saw her crying after whatever happened during that unlogged 11-minute drive. At 7 the next morning, Wright arrived for his shift early. He reviewed the day schedules 3 times, memorizing every movement, every expected location of every royal family member. Princess Charlotte's morning tutoring session in the library was scheduled from 9 to 10:30. Prince William and Princess Kate were both off-ground, attending separate official engagements. King Charles was meeting with government ministers. Camilla's schedule showed a private morning in her apartments, which meant Charlotte would be with her tutors, supervised, safe, or so it seemed. At 8:45, Wright positioned himself in the East Wing corridor adjacent to the library. His official patrol route read, East Wing corridor, routine security check. Nothing suspicious about a guard being exactly where he was supposed to be. He watched palace staff move through the corridor. Housekeepers with cleaning carts, private secretaries carrying folders, a chef heading toward the kitchens, normal morning activity. At 8:57, Princess Charlotte appeared at the far end of the corridor, walking with her tutor, Miss Elizabeth Hammond. Charlotte carried her books, her head down, moving slowly. Wright waited. Timing was everything. Too eager and he'd alarm her. Too passive and he'd miss his chance. Miss Hammond stopped to speak with another staff member just for a moment. Charlotte stood slightly apart, waiting. Wright approached, keeping his movements casual. "Good morning, Your Highness." Charlotte looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She'd been crying recently. "Good morning," she said quietly, with the reflexive politeness drilled into young royals. "Heading to your lesson?" She nodded. Wright lowered his voice. "Your Highness, I found your cardigan yesterday in a vehicle. I wanted to make sure you're all right." Charlotte's expression changed. Fear flashed across her face, quickly suppressed. She glanced at Miss Hammond, still engaged in conversation a few feet away. "I'm fine," Charlotte whispered, but her hands tightened on her books. "If something's wrong, you can tell me. It's my job to keep you safe." She started to say something, then stopped herself. "I'm not supposed to talk about it." Wright's pulse quickened. "Who said that?" Charlotte's eyes darted toward Miss Hammond again. The tutor was finishing her conversation. Time was running out. "Your Highness, if someone is making you uncomfortable or if you're scared, I have to know." Charlotte's voice cracked slightly. She hurried toward Miss Hammond, who smiled and guided her toward the library entrance. Wright watched them disappear through the ornate doors. Charlotte had looked terrified. Not of him, of talking. Someone had told her to stay silent, and Wright would bet his entire career he knew who. He needed more than gut feelings and a child's frightened reaction. He needed concrete evidence, something undeniable. His phone buzzed, a text from Harding. "More footage. You need to see this." Wright headed back to the camera room, his mind racing through possibility. What had happened during that 11-minute drive? Where had they actually gone? And why was Camilla so determined to keep it secret? What Wright didn't know yet was that the evidence he needed was still in that Range Rover, hidden in a place no one had thought to look. When he found it, everything would change. Not just for Princess Charlotte, for the entire royal family. Harding had pulled up footage from multiple cameras, creating a timeline of the previous afternoon. "I went back further," he said, gesturing at the screens. "Started at 3 p.m. Watch this." The monitor showed the corridor outside the music room where Charlotte had been scheduled for her lesson. Then, at 3:45, Charlotte emerged with her music instructor, Mrs. Davies. They walked toward the practice rooms, normal, expected, but at 4:10, Camilla appeared in the same corridor. She spoke briefly with Mrs. Davies. The instructor nodded, gathered her materials, and left. Camilla then entered the practice room where Charlotte waited. "Can you get audio?" Wright asked. "No microphones in the practice room. Privacy protocols," Harding fast-forwarded. "But watch the body language." 8 minutes later, Camilla and Charlotte emerged together. Charlotte's posture had changed completely. Her shoulders were hunched. She walked half a step behind Camilla, not beside her. She dismissed the instructor, Wright said, took Charlotte out of her scheduled lesson without logging it, without notifying the princess's parents. Harding switched to another camera. And look where they went. The footage showed Camilla and Charlotte walking through a service corridor, avoiding the main hall. They used the staff passages, the routes that didn't have as much camera coverage. She knew where the blind spots were, Wright said quietly. "Gets better." Harding pulled up another angle. "I checked the vehicle logs." That Range Rover? It was requested at 3 p.m., an hour before Camilla pulled Charlotte from her lesson. This wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. Wright felt cold certainty settling in his chest. This wasn't a grandmother taking her grandchild for an impromptu drive. This was premeditated, calculated. "I need to search that vehicle properly," Wright said. "Captain Wells will never authorize it. Then I won't ask for authorization."